Okay, well, thanks everybody for attending today. I really appreciate the amount of feedback and interest we had in this session, and it's nice to watch the attendee list go up every few seconds and keep moving forward. So that definitely shows the interest and I think the need for a lot of the features that are coming in this Dragonfly release. My name is Rich Graves. I'm on the product management team. Also from the product management team, we have Prasanna. Prasanna's online, and Prasanna will be focused on the demo today. Both of us, again, will be monitoring questions at all times, so feel free to use the WebEx Q&A feature. First, a bit of a legal disclaimer that we always have to do when we're talking about futures. Everything we're talking about related to the Dragonfly release are things that we are targeting, but things can always change. Priorities may change. You know, we use Agile, and we know that we can pivot or change based on that. But the intent is for everything we talk about Dragonfly that you get in a production release in February. But certainly things can change, and we're also going to talk about a few things beyond Dragonfly and future releases as well. So as far as the agenda, we'll start off with a release overview. I'll give a presentation format, switch over to Prasanna for a demonstration. I'll close out with a few more upcoming features and a roadmap, and then we'll go to a summary and questions. So the first thing I always like to do is share a bit of history. On the previous webcast we did, I showed 2012 all the way through 2014 as well as 2015 and what we're targeting for 2016. I just want to make sure everyone's aware this calendar year, 2015, we had 3 major releases: the Bamboo release, Bamboo Maintenance Release 1, which was really its own release, but included a lot of maintenance as well. And then the Clover release, which is now all of our customers, 100% of the customer base for CSM is now running on, which was rolled out and completed in November. The next release is called Dragonfly. That is targeted for February, and the follow-on release, just so you're aware of the name, is targeted in May and called Elephant. So we'll talk a little bit more about that release and some of the things we're talking about or thinking about, and then cover that in more detail starting in probably February or March. I covered this in the last webcast as well in the run-up to Clover, but I think it's important to sort of summarize and let you know what we're focused on based on what we're hearing from you as customers as well as our partners as well. Number one is less downtime during maintenance. We had a lot of focus in Clover on this. The Clover actual upgrade, the time it took for our operations team to actually run that install and upgrade took about an hour. We do a lot of automated and manual validation to make sure everything's working by our support team after the upgrade. So the actual downtime was 1 hour. We planned it for 2 and 3 hours depending on the environment because of the validation and because we want to validate and make sure everything's up and running before we give customers the okay. That is significantly down from previous releases. We still want to do better. I would love for that whole window to be as close to 0 as possible, or that whole window be an hour or 30 minutes or 5 minutes is the end goal, and with each release we'll get better and better at that. Additionally, more focus on managed service providers. About 60% of the cloud service management customer base are managed service providers, so they're organizations supporting multiple external customers. So we have a lot of interest in improving the product and better aligning to those use cases. Additionally, improved productivity for analysts. We've heard this a lot, especially from NIMSOFT Service Desk 6 customers who recently migrated in the last 6 months or year, that really a lot of pressure from their analysts to save them time. So whether that's reducing clicks, making it easier to find the data they're looking for, making it faster to get to certain areas of the application, but really improving productivity, which ultimately means dollars to every organization. If your analyst can handle more tickets because it takes less clicks to get something done, that makes them more productive and saves you ultimately time and money. Next is addressing ideas from the community. I think we've had a really great focus over the last 2 releases on really trying to knock off as many of those ideas as possible because we know that's what's most important to you as existing customers. I put together a summary slide at the end that will show all the different ideas. Basically everything that we're doing in this release is related to an idea on the customer community. And last but certainly not least, something we heard loud and clear over the previous months was more predictable and consistent release cadence. if you've been with CSM for a while, you know, we had some releases that were so focused on the big chunks of functionality that they were 6, 8, 9-month releases. And we really heard that those releases then introduced so much change that it's often difficult for you all to test and feel comfortable with those releases. And quite honestly, you know, there's a lot of defects in those releases because it's just such a huge release. So we wanted to shrink the amount of change we were doing and do these releases focused on quarterly releases every 3 months, the middle month of the quarter. And I'll shift over to the next slide while I do this. So every 3 months, the release to production in the middle month of the quarter. These are much smaller releases, making it our QA process is much better now because we're so focused on, you know, 5 or 10 things rather than 30 or 40 things. It allows you to be able to test these in your staging environment and much easier because you're focused on, you know, 5 or 10 things. So we found Bamboo MR1 was one of the first releases. Clover was really the key release in sort of kicking off this cycle. We found the quality was much better. The feedback of customers was much better. The release window was smaller as well. So I think we're getting better at releasing. I put a blog on the community on this as well. It's really us trying to refocus on being agile and the agile process and some of the benefits of agile and being able to be focused and get things out and try to get better at releasing and trying to pay less of a penalty each time you release. So if you are in the development front, you'll know what I'm talking about there. So it's something we're really putting a lot of focus on and hope to shrink down that release process and get things to you faster. So again, 3-month releases, middle month of the quarter. Dragonfly will be released in February to production. Elephant, the follow-on release, will be released in May to production, and then of course August, November to complete that cycle, to have 4 releases a year, smaller, more predictable, and we feel much more confident that we're reducing the risk by having smaller releases, the risk that we'll miss a date and that you'll be delayed or we'll be delayed in delivering something that's important to you. Last point here, if you're not familiar, we do use our release names, just something fun for us, or lucky symbols in alphabetical order. Okay. Was there a question on the line? I thought I heard a question. Okay. Now on to Dragonfly. So the Dragonfly release, we had 3 main themes, very similar at a theme level to the Clover release. The first is what we call service provider control. So really giving a lot more flexibility to specifically managed service providers, but these features really help enterprise customers who are managing internal IT as well. I think the benefits are for both types of customers or organizations. Primarily being able to tailor things based on who your end customer is. So whether you're enterprise IT or whether you're a managed service provider, if you want to tailor a specific set of communications to that customer, that account, that organization that you're working to, you can now tailor those with some nice HTML templates. Additionally, if you have multiple organizations that you're supporting, if they each want their own single sign-on, you can certainly do that now with this release. So these are things that managed service providers have really asked for quite a while, and the benefits are really for everyone, and we'll be showing that in just a few minutes. Next, on analyst productivity, this is again around saving time, reducing the number of clicks, making it a lot easier to really focus on getting the right information that an analyst wants in Ticket Center. So that queue is where the analyst, the level 1 analyst, lives day in and day out. So what can we do for that level 1 analyst to make their life easier and allow them to quickly find the information they're looking for? So that includes saving filters, some additional filters, some nice things that we'll talk about as well. Last but certainly not least, some administration improvements. So there's a lot of things operationally we're doing under the covers that you'll see related to performance improvements, related to less downtime during upgrades. But a couple other things that we'll mention briefly are the ability to select the languages that you support in your slice, so in your instance. So as an administrator, if you only are supporting customers in English, today we load all 11 languages that we support, all their communication templates. So if you're confused of why you're seeing Russian communication templates on your admin forms, and that's probably slowing you down and just a waste of essentially space, in your system, we now have the ability for you to select what languages you want to support. If it's English only, great. At migration, if your users are only using English, you'll no longer see those other communication templates. If you're supporting English, Spanish, and Brazilian Portuguese, at migration, we'll migrate all those languages. You'll see all those communication templates, and you can keep doing that. Okay. So focused again on managed service providers, I want to touch on a few specific examples related to new features. This first is a diagram similar to what we used in Clover, but today for a managed service provider, when it comes to communications, email notifications or communication templates, you essentially have one look and feel per a customer, or across the entire instance, excuse me, not per a customer. So you're defining those communications, the look and feel at the MSP level. So oftentimes our managed service providers tailor them to say, give it a look and feel of their organization. Additionally, authentication today, single sign-on is you only have the ability to set up one single sign-on configuration, and in most cases, again, the managed service provider allows their employees to log in without having to have a separate username and password. And customers, have to figure out what their username and password is, or have a separate login than their own account. So what we want to do is just really make that more flexible and really push those down to the organization level. So to the customer, in this example, customer A can have its own look and feel for communication templates, can have its own single sign-on, and customer B can have a completely different communication template look and feel, or look and feel for their communications they receive, as well as a completely different single sign-on setup as well. So we'll go into more detail on these in the next coming slides. But what's important here is that it's really now organization-specific, having a lot more flexibility in building what you need to deliver to these different organizations that you're working with. Okay. So to drill into a little bit more specifics on what we're calling organization-based HTML templates for communications. So if you think about a communication, triggered automatically from a ticket that's sent to the end user, the requester on that ticket, today they have a certain look and feel based on that communication template. What you'll have the ability to add is in Dragonfly, you'll see there's this HTML template field in the bottom left of that screenshot where you can put in a custom logo, any rich text or HTML text. You have a rich text editor there to be able to essentially add a header, a footer to your communication sent to that customer that's, again, specific to their primary organization. So when they receive that email triggered from a ticket, they're going to have their company logo, maybe their service desk name, any other additional details that you want to tailor specific to that organization. So it looks and feels like this is their organization's service desk, not a managed service provider or not an outsourcer or whatever the case may be. Additionally, if you're an enterprise IT organization, you have subsidiaries, you can set this up the same way. If there's a subsidiary, you can then tailor that specific to them. So the HTML template field will be on every organization record, so that when you get the upgrade to Dragonfly and to staging or production, you'll see this new field on every organization record. The data you put in this field, the information you put in this field, will not be automatically triggered until you turn on a configuration parameter. So we want to give you time to play around and make sure you're happy with the HTML that you put in here. Then turn on this configuration parameter, and then the templates will be used when setting those communications. Again, the HTML template is based on the user's primary organization, so that's important to note. So these communications can be triggered from a variety of different places in the application, and it's always based on the user's primary organization. So if you have users that are part of multiple organizations, just keep that in mind when you're setting things up here. Okay. Next on single sign-on. So we've added what we're essentially calling multi-tenant single sign-on configuration. So today in the application, you have the ability to set up single sign-on, one time. So if you have separate customers or inside your own organization, different networks or domains that have different single sign-on, you really have to just pick one, and you know, the other people are out of luck, unfortunately. So the same place where you set it up today, in Slice Configuration, you have a single sign-on tab. That tab is not just one set of fields. Now it's a table where you can add multiple rows to that table and have multiple single sign-on configurations there. So you set up your single sign-on configuration there, put all the information that you would today, but in separate rows, and then you can set up a unique redirect URL on logout for each one of those. So if you have separate customers, then and you set up single sign-on for them, they never have to see the CA login page when they log in. They never have to, when they log out, they're not directed to the CA, you know, login page again. You can redirect them to your page, to a page of their choosing. So you have a lot of nice flexibility there to, again, make the application look and feel like it's tailored specific to the customers that you're supporting. Okay. Most importantly, all existing configurations are migrated. So if you do have single sign-on set up, it will be migrated. It just look like a row on the table rather than you know, fields on a single form from there. Okay. Next on to some of the analyst productivity improvements. I think something we had heard loud and clear from many customers was really the ability to save filters. So a few releases back, we added the, you know, in the browser cache, essentially storing a cookie for the last applied filter to many different workspaces. What people wanted was a lot more flexibility. You know, they want their tickets, they want their team's tickets, they want, you know, their manager's tickets, whatever the case may be, and being able to easily access those. So when you open up the filter in Dragonfly, you still have the ability to apply ad hoc filters, and now you also have the ability to save a filter. So you build your filter just like you normally would, you know, click a bunch of these different fields here, and then if you name it and hit save and apply, you're saving that filter for future use as well as you're immediately applying that. You can rename your filters, you can delete them. These are your filters associated with your profile, and you can manage them directly from Ticket Center here. So really valuable approach, and it's a great way to manage your filters and get at data very quickly, I think, compared to previous releases. So I know a lot of analysts and a lot of managers are really excited about this. Additionally, on Ticket Center, there's a lot of ideas on the community for adding additional items to the filter itself. In the assigned individual area with a red rectangle around it there, we added two different checkboxes there, one for assigned to me and one for unassigned. There's a lot of requests and discussion on the community for saying, I want to quickly find my tickets. So you can certainly now filter on that very quickly. You can also, you know, do some nice types of filtering, you know, assigned to me, you know, or assigned to this other member of the team, so you can do that. Of course, save your filters there. Unassigned, obviously, is very useful to filter that queue down to see if there's any tickets that don't have an owner. So then you can, you know, focus on those or reassign those, maybe using bulk actions or something. Next is categorization. So the CCTI was something that people were asking for a lot in the community to be able to filter by. So you do have the ability to filter by that. Additionally, I'm not showing it in the screenshot here, but the grid view, so we have the list view, which is the default when you first log in. The grid view, which has all the columns there, also has an additional field, CCTI, so now you can, not only can you filter on it, but you can see it in the grid view, the CCTI for all the different tickets, and then of course sort by that if you did want to do that. Last but certainly not least, it's not shown in the screenshot here, but on organization, there is a new configuration parameter that you can turn on that will turn on a checkbox that will appear under that organization filter field, which will allow for filtering by the organization that you select and all of its child organizations. So this is very useful, especially for managed service providers. If one of your customers is IBM, and you filter by IBM and have this checkbox checked, that you'll see IBM in all of the different organizations or sites or locations or whatever that's under that. You'll be able to see all of that without having to find 100 different IBM organizations and add them to the filter there. So that's very useful to be able to do, and I think will be a welcome feature that's added here. A couple different questions coming in on the Q&A, one related to how many filters can be saved. Right now there's no limit on the number of filters that can be saved, so you can save as many as you need to there. I don't think we put any limit. Yeah, I think we were thinking originally like 25 or 30 or 50, but right now there is no limit on that, no guardrail on that, so you can go crazy. But certainly as the more you get, the more difficult it is to maintain and find your filters, so keep that in mind. Next on global search. So there is a beta tag here, and I'll explain that at the end, but we are adding in a brand new dedicated search engine for the global search. So that's the search from the top right-hand part of the application, that global search. A lot of feedback from customers related to that, not having great results, not really being focused on relevance, more being focused on keywords plus last modified date. So we did add a brand new Elastic search engine which moves the search processing out of the database and onto this dedicated engine, which immediately should improve performance overall, several different tasks in the application. But additionally, being that it's a full-fledged search engine, the results will get much, much better. So queries that you search are focused on relevance, like all real modern search engines do. So much better results. We're focused really on tickets and attributes related to tickets, such as knowledge base articles, configuration items, as well as users or contacts. Now this is in beta in Dragonfly, so it's all production code. We're putting it through all of our normal QA process, but because it's a brand new search engine and we need to do some tuning and optimization of the search engine, as well as we want to make sure it's scaled and meets real customer use cases and needs. So at this point, it will be in beta. We'll have a select number of customers helping us out with this beta, first in staging. If they're happy with it in staging, we'll turn it on in production. So it's essentially, it's available, it's installed with the upgrade. It's just hidden from all customers unless you're in the beta. So if you are interested in the beta, please do reach out to me or Prasanna. You can find us on the community, or I'll make sure to mention my email address at the end as well. So if you are interested in participating, it's essentially something that will once turned on, you can see at the top right there, tiny little red text that says beta. So essentially, users will do a normal search in global search. They'll see the exact results they see today, but they'll be prompted to say, with a little link that says, try new version. And if you do try that new version, then you're seeing the new results, from the beta. And at any point, they can switch back. So we didn't want to give customers a lot of flexibility there if they're not happy with that, and they can do their testing there. Okay. All right. So that's something we're really excited about. I think that will really improve things for customers. Next on more of an administration improvement, we did see a lot of feedback on the community for adding the sort order on workflow actions in Process Designer. So if you do build out a process in the Process Designer, one thing that was missing was the ability to add the sort order. So essentially the order of the actions, when you click the actions button within a ticket, the order of those actions were really determined on when you saved things in the database, which is not useful for you to set up. And if you're changing things, they may switch order. So we made this now for an administrator can manually set this and set to determine the sort order. So if they want a certain action first, followed by another action, followed by another action, they can determine that on what analysts will see and make sure that it makes it easier for the analyst to follow the process consistently. Okay. All right, so I'll pause there and ask for any questions on the audio line while I pass it over to Prasanna, who's now going to start the demonstration. So if you do have any audio questions at this point, #6 to ask a question. Additionally, I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A on WebEx. Okay. So no audio questions at this point. So Prasanna, I can see your screen and administration tools, so go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. Let me start over. I think a couple of features which we did that showed through. I think HTML template is one of them. So I would show what configurations would be there for that. So we have a configuration parameter called enable organization HTML templates. So by enabling this, so each organization would have an option to configure their HTML template. And whenever there is a notification sent to one of those recipients, it would check the organization whether there is HTML configuration is there. If it is there, then it would pick up that configuration template and then push the mail instead of a normal flat text email. It would be a HTML email with the logo and whatever the header and footer you have configured for that. So in case if some customers are not interested in doing that, so they can switch off this completely by this parameter would switch off the HTML template. So how you configure the HTML template? So what we have done is like in organization, so we have an option to configure in the details section of the organization. So we have a placeholder to specify the HTML template. So unlike the earlier way where they need to probably key in the information of all the HTML tags, everything inside the HTML template, so we got rid of that, and then now we have the option of making that bold font, everything, whatever is required for the rich text HTML font. So apart from that, just to help out the existing customers or existing guys to start using this HTML template, so we came up with a sample template, so where they can get a feel of like what this template would be, how to create a template, what are the requirements, or what is this one's required for creating HTML template. One is definitely the logo, and then we have a header. And quite important is this replace message body. So this is a tag or a token which we use for all the existing communication template. So what would happen is like whenever there is a normal communication template you send, for example, a request created, there should go an acknowledgement to the requester as the request is created, and then people would be working on that. So that message body was staying in the communication templates, which was the standard earlier way of using it. So that message would get embedded into this HTML template, and the message would be sent. So this message body, again, you can like all of the message can be configured to be bold, color, italics, all those font changes, rich text information can be configured, and also the footer information. So like in case if you want to have a logo in the footer, you can have them. So we have the option of sample HTML template where you can use that and then build your own template and then make use for all the configurations there. So apart from that, we also have preview where in case if the message body, if you want to see how it looks in a bigger this one than the configuration, so you have the ability to do a preview of that template, and then it gets applied to the organization for there. So any questions before I move to the single sign-on configuration?
One key question that came in that I did answer on the Q&A was, could you essentially, how did the child organizations leverage it? So essentially, could you set you know, an HTML template at a you know, customer level, organization level, and then the child organizations inherit it? And yes, absolutely, you can do that. Essentially, the child organizations go up the tree to the parent. So if there's no HTML template on the child, it'll go up to the parent. If there's none there, it'll go up to the next parent, et cetera, et cetera. So you can absolutely set that up in a much easier way rather than having to set it at every single one of your organizations.
Right. So if the child organization has HTML template configured, it would pick up that. In case if it is not, it goes to the immediate parent. If the immediate parent has a template, it will use that template. If not configured at the immediate parent, it goes back one more step. It goes till the hierarchy, And then if it doesn't find anything, then a flat text email as existing one would be sent to the customers, to the recipient of the notification. So that's about the HTML. So what we have also done along with the HTML configuration is the single sign-on configuration, again for organization-based. So we had this functionality which was mainly we can have one configuration, one single sign-on. There is only one URL which can be used for signing in. And so we enhanced that to have at the multiple organization level. So you can have multiple authorization domains configured, and then each would have their own identity provider URLs. And then how do we define that differentiator would be this email domain tags. For example, if I'm part of ca.com, I can specify this is my authorization domain which I need to log in, so which I can use that and then differentiate between the email domains. You can have multiple email domains for a single authorization domain, so that way you can configure many number of at organization levels. Each organization level can have their own single sign-on configuration. So what they need to use is the URL, and along with that, this authorization domain would be there in their single sign-on URL. So that would be the differentiator for logging in from their single sign-on link. So that way you can have multiple of them. Each can have different logout. It depends on the configuration. So you can have one, or you can have multiple based on the configuration at the organization level. You know, many number of logouts, and then the email domain tags to go through that. So these are the two major changes which we have done for the service providers, which would be helpful for service provider environment too. So along with that, we also did one of the change, because I was in the tools section, so I would like to show you the process sort order, which is again one of the small feature which we added into this one. So earlier, if you have, for example, at this stage, like update ticket, assign to group, create ticket. So these three are at the same step as the entry criteria. So whenever there is a ticket which is in this step, you would see all these actions showing up in the actions drop down. So we don't have an option earlier to specify which should show up at the top, which should show up the second based on the sort order. So it was dynamically showing up, and then it had some concerns for some of the customers, because the changes would happen when I edit this process flow and then republish that process flow. At that point of time, again, dynamically the order gets changed. So now we added the sort order where I can specify what action should show up at the sort order, at the 0 level, 1 level, or at the 2 level. So based on that, the actions drop-down list in the ticket would show up for the user. Any questions till now on the sort order? Let me quickly turn over to the ticket center, where we have done a couple of modifications, couple of enhancements, mainly on the ticket grid. So what we have added the CCTI column to the grid. Let me show. So the categorization is just added to the grid, so you would be able to see the actual CCTI for a ticket. So that is one small enhancement which we have done. And then the filter. So in filter, what we have done is like, in case if you have already configured your browser to cache the filter information, so whenever you first log into the Dragonfly at the day 1, so whatever the configured filter would show up as the filter applied, you would be able to save that configuration. Assume you already have something to show up like ticket days, and then I'm doing only service request, I'm interested in the new tickets status, it would show up like this. So I can just create that, and then I can save this filter 1. And then save and apply. Those would get applied. This is my age. ticket, service request, and status. So, and then we also have an option in case we want to quickly check. We don't want to save this. I saved this my personal filter, which I would need to get in whenever I need sometime later. But I am now interested in seeing all the ticket status tickets, and then instead of save and apply, I'll just go and apply. So when I apply, that gets filtered again and then gets applied onto the criteria, and you would see all the ticket statuses available. I think in this slice might have not have age 2.7, 2 to 7 days. It might be older data what you have in the system. So let me filter that way and then see that. Let me take 15 days, and then I'm just interested in seeing service request, and then I am applying this. So this gets applied, so you would see the ticket which is beyond 15 days, it would show up. So I can save this filter, or I can just go and apply and then proceed as I'm doing it earlier also. I have the option of saving them. So apart from that, we also have this assign to me and assign filters, which would be great help for assigning in case if you are looking at bulk update, bulk action, so you can use this filter. That would show me all the unassigned. You can do a bulk action to assign them to a group or an individual there. Along with that, we also have categorization. So we can also filter based on the categories of the tickets, hardware or something like that. I can filter, and then I don't know that I have got any tickets with this. It gets applied and show that I'm sure I don't have tickets for that, but yeah, it would filter and then save the filter or apply the filter as you go on. So that's about the filter modifications and then updates. So coming back to the search, so we have option, for example, whenever for some customers, beta customer, we have the option of showing up this particular feature. So it would show up for those customers who are enabled this search beta search feature. So it would show up like search and then beta. You're using this, and then if you're not interested in doing beta, or if you're not interested in doing that search and you want to switch back, you can have the option to switch back, and again shows me the try beta link. So for testing, I'm just trying to test and then show you what capability we have in the this one. So I'm just searching basically on the keyword internet. So that's a internet keyword. So it would show me all the tickets related to that, and also the KB articles related to that. Probably it's my development environment. It's becoming a bit slow now.
So one note I'll just say, there's a couple questions that came in that I just think are worth mentioning on the previous feature on the filter, just to mention. There's a question about deleting a filter. So if you do save a filter, you just bring up that filter, and there's a delete button in the filter overlay screen. So you can delete your filters there and manage your own filters. So that's one thing to note. Additionally, there was one other point, Prasanna, if we can just jump back. You don't have to change it in the interface, but on HTML templates. So if an organization already has different notifications set up and they start using the HTML template, does that override what they've done in the communication templates? It just really is more of adding to what's in the communication template. Is that correct?
That's right. That's correct. Whatever they have in the communication template would go and then add inside this body, the message body. So right. This would add the additional header and footer, but whatever they have in the communication template would go and fit inside the message body of the message there.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks. I just wanted to do that one. Try searching there.
Yeah.
Prasanna,
some problem in the development.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll pause here. So I'm sorry we can't share those search results. I'll jump back to the screenshot. So this is a development environment. We finished 2 sprints and wanted to share everything we could with you all now. If there are other questions at this point, feel free at any time to ask a question on the WebEx Q&A. So there's a little Q&A feature with a question mark. Additionally, I can take questions right now on audio as well. So if you have an audio question, it's #6 on your phone to unmute yourself, and feel free to ask an audio question. So we'll pause real quick for audio questions. Anything on the line? Okay. All right. Well, Prasanna, how about you switch back to me, and I'll finish up on a few slides, and if things are working, we'll jump back to you.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So there's a couple other things that that we have additional improvements on that not things you can really demonstrate. I did mention before on the ability for an admin to select the different languages in their system. So we got a lot of feedback from customers that we load all the languages, all the possible languages. We support 11 languages in the system, including things like Italian and Russian and lots of other ones. So the admin now has the ability to restrict the number of languages that are available to your users. So number one, the first thing it does is limits that drop down in the My Profile. So today on My Profile, every user within every customer instance has the ability to select any of our supported languages. If you don't support those languages in your organization or specifically don't want to, so that limits those languages. Number one, it removes a large amount of things in the system that are specifically translated and loaded into your environment. So communication templates is the perfect example. If you're not using Russian, you're seeing a ton of Russian communication templates that bogs down your system, that waste your time, that we've heard people complain about, of just getting in the way of them finding what they're looking for. So again, if you're only using one language, let's say Spanish, when you upgrade, you're only going to see Spanish communication templates. Administrators have the ability to change this at any point. If they want to add a language, if they want to remove a language, they can certainly do that. This also removes a lot of data from your actual instance. So in your database, we're storing all these communication templates, so that frees up some space. Should improve performance, and again, we're just using up space that's unnecessary as well. Some things around performance improvements. I'll sort of mention these in reverse order, but we did spend a lot of time looking at different queries in the system that were performing poorly and looking to optimize those and see what we can do to do a better job of improving system performance by looking at some of those queries in the system. A lot of those queries related to tickets, so we should see some performance improvements on different people updating, accessing, saving tickets. You should see some performance improvements there, which I know will help everyone on the system. Next, on archiving data, so the policy we've taken, from inception of NIMSOFT Service Desk or Cloud Service Management was to store data forever, and we really had no policy at this point because the system is still, in a SaaS environment, it's not old by most standards. I think some of our oldest customers are 5 and 6 years old, so we didn't really need to worry about archiving data. But now, as we've seen a lot of growth in customers, new customers, existing customers been on the system for a while or using the system quite a bit, we've have noticed a need to archive old data. And we're starting with the login history table. So this is often used if you're trying to see who's using the system at your customers, or we sometimes use it in licensing. We will be archiving data that's older than 2 years old in the system. Shouldn't impact anyone. I put a poll on the community a while ago, and there wasn't really much concern about keeping data longer than 2 years. So that is the plan for Dragonfly. We're really only archiving the data older than 2 years from the login history table. In future releases, we'll be doing more archiving of other objects in the system. Mainly tickets is the next priority that we want to focus on. So again, not for Dragonfly. For a future release, we will be looking at archiving tickets older than 2 years, but doing that in a way where we do it every 3 months. We look at for data that's older than 2 years, archive that data, give you access to that data to be able to extract that data and keep it on site if you did want to store that for future use. Okay. So again, Dragonfly, the only thing we're doing is login history. Future releases, we'll look at other objects, and we'll certainly give everyone a heads up on when that's coming. Next, we will in Dragonfly fix over 60 different bugs that were reported. We'll be putting in fixes for those as well. So that's, I know, important as always to make sure we're maintaining quality there. Okay. Next, from a roadmap perspective, so Clover is our existing release. Many of you probably see this as our official CA standard for communicating roadmaps and futures. Planned is what we're really doing for the Dragonfly release that's focused on managed service providers with communication HTML templates, and single sign-on, use analyst productivity improvements all around Ticket Center, as well as some performance improvements related to archiving, purging, and optimizing queries. And again, as always, addressing defects as they come in and trying to improve the quality of the system. What we're looking at for beyond Dragonfly, and this is probably going to come in multiple releases, is improving that search, so making that official in the product for all customers. That's the target for the Elephant release coming after Dragonfly, is having this optimized search engine available to everyone beyond just the beta in Dragonfly. Continuing to focus on those top customer ideas, so as people vote and give us feedback on those ideas, giving us a chance to really improve things for you as the customers. I think advanced reporting is really the next big area we want to keep improving, having more data sets out of the box so you don't have to touch and edit the domain, and having more out of the box reports that you can leverage rather than having to build them on your own. Data extracts are something that a lot of customers use to be able to get their data on premise. Many people use that data to do financial reporting, licensing of their end customers, to manage things, or just use their own on-premise reporting tools. So we'll continue to see what we can do there to improve those extracts, make them much more self-service, so give you much more on-demand access to your data to improve things there. Process Designer, being able to export and import workflows. We want to support the scenarios of you building what you want to build in staging, test those, get it all right, bundle it up, and extract it and move it into your production environment to make that less of a headache from a change management perspective. And then the next two, operational improvements, again, pushing to get better and better on downtime during upgrades. So having less and less downtime, having a much more seamless process to have upgrades, and make that a much better experience for customers. Automation workflows, we do want to improve some things related to automation on being able to trigger those from a process workflow and make that a nicer, sort of more integrated experience than what they are today. Okay. And keeping an eye on time, one thing I wanted to share is everything we talked about today were ideas on the community. So this is something we take very, very seriously in product management within the Cloud Service Management team, is we want all these enhancements. We want to show you that we're listening and that we're reacting to these as well. So I calculated this 2 days ago of where these exact ideas that we're showing here today, where they stand in the community. I will say things are constantly moving, so if I did this today, they might tweak, and number 7 might be number 8 today, or number 6. Additionally, when we took up many of these ideas, some of them were ranked higher than what they are today, because once we move them to a planned status on the community, that locks down voting, and there's no more voting allowed. So things will probably go down a little bit, but not dramatically. So as you can see here, we tried to put a focus on getting many of the top 10, top 25 ideas. Some of these other ideas, you can see some of these filter ones, like number 42, number 62, and 99. Those are further down the list than we'd normally pick up, but they all related to filtering. So we thought, hey, while we're opening up the filter and trying to do some things to improve the filters, let's take some of these others. So let's take number 9, let's take 42, 62, and 99, as they all relate to the filter, and we know they all improve analyst productivity. So that's important to note. Also, on the organization-based HTML templates, there were 3 ideas that were so similar, but asked for slightly different things that I didn't mark them as duplicate, but they all relate to the core improvements. They all relate to a challenge that we're solving, I would say, in Dragonfly. So again, that's really a plug for the community and showing that, Prasanna and I look at those ideas very frequently and take them very seriously. So your votes and your comments and your ideas are really what shapes the backlog that we're working on. Okay. So in summary, and then we'll check in with Prasanna, see if we can show a search, but in summary, this is a Dragonfly release. We showed you what we've completed so far. There'll be a few more minor things that are coming, but this is really our target of key features for the release. We will roll it out in February. The end of January, we'll have another webcast to show you the final release and show you a couple of the things we showed today related to HTML templates. Well, we're widening that field. We're fixing a few little things there, so we'll show you what's final. Additionally, end of January, we'll also communicate the dates that will be rolled out into staging, and then shortly after that, we'll communicate the dates for production. Again, we'll continue to focus on this quarterly release cadence. We think it's a much better way for us to get you functionality quickly and focus on smaller, higher quality releases. And then lastly, as always, I'd like to plug the community. Really, it's a great way for simple questions. I get questions from customers direct to me all the time about, well, what's the best way to do this? Should I use this feature or this feature? And I can always give my opinion, but I'm not an actual user. I'm not an actual customer. So oftentimes, those are the types of questions that are just awesome for the community because you'll get a lot of feedback from others, partners, customers, employees on what they recommend. Additionally, if you're running into something strange and you just want to bounce it off others, it's a great place too. And then, of course, ideas. That is the place to go to give us input into what's important to your organization and what should be in a future release. Okay. Prasanna, should we swing back to you? Do you have anything you can show us on search?
No, Rich. I think something got broke, looks like, so I should not be able to.
That's all right. It is software, and we are still in the engineering sprint there. So
that's true.
So I'll take a pause for questions. There's still some other questions coming in on the WebEx, but are there any questions on the audio line? Again, it's #6 to unmute yourself, or you can unmute with the microphone button in WebEx as well. Any questions on the audio line? Okay, no questions on audio at this point. There are a few more questions on the WebEx that I'll answer there. Prasanna and I will hang around for another, I'll say 5 to 10 minutes to see any other questions on WebEx that come in. We'll make sure we address all those before we leave. But at this point, I will close out the webcast. Look for the recording on the community within about 48 hours. And then, again, hop into the community, and we look forward to your feedback and thoughts on Dragonfly. Hopefully this was beneficial to you. All right, thanks, everyone.